An overview, we're going to talk about ecosystems, and then specifically, how do human beings impact water, air, landforms, species, and also end up talking about garbage. And the objectives are to do that. That's all preliminary. Also preliminary, the opening figure in chapter 13 looks at this French painting. And in the late 1800s, indeed, you had the Industrial Revolution of Europe and polluted cities and factories and so forth. But that's bad to have those smokestacks. It affects people, but generally for many years, it was looked upon industrialization, smokestacks were a good thing. The more smokestacks, the better, because you had production, you had jobs for people. Now, the thing is, though, a lot of these things come back to haunt us. So I would say the chapter is human impact on environment, because we make air pollution, water pollution, contaminate the soil and everything else. However, why are we concerned about those issues? Because, well, a polluted environment comes back to impact humans in various ways. The different types of air pollutants do different types of things to our body, or poisoned by pesticides in various ways. All right. So that's a good point, right? Human impact on environment, but what about polluted environment impact on human? There's a few opening pictures, and with this one, I have to feel sorry for these people. I know this was probably taken 20 years ago, I'm thinking, although there still is a lot of impoverishment in India, even though India is a technological country on one hand, still has large pockets of poverty. They're washing clothes. How are clothes going to get clean in that water? Right? And unfortunately, the scene that you see on the right, trash everywhere, that's also still a big part in that country, and many countries too, in the less developed world especially. All right, let's see. Well, we have our own piles of garbage around, and that's an issue that we'll get at later. Issues such as e-waste, high sanitary landfill issues are running out of space, but certainly we're a big consumer society, and so we produce a lot of pollution. Now, some trash doesn't harm us that much, and if it's buried, a lot of things are. Hazardous waste. Do you have hazardous waste back in your dorm room? Like if you invite somebody over for cookies or something like that, do they ever say, "Oh, I can't go over there"? You have hazardous waste in your apartment. Well, sure you do. You have bleach, don't you? You have bathroom cleaner, don't you? You have batteries, don't you? All of those things are hazardous waste if they're not properly maintained and disposed of. All right, that's one of the concepts, hazardous waste. Also, another one of the opening vignette talks about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch out in the vast Pacific Ocean. Just because of the currents and the waves here, it tends to accumulate in the center of this current gyration. So it's a buildup of garbage. It's spread out, but if you concentrated it together, it'd be as large as the state of Texas. So a lot of the garbage. A lot of times when things are thrown out, they make their way downstream, and then they make their way out into the ocean. And what happens then? Well, some of it sinks, not a lot of it does. And that's an issue, particularly the plastics that will stick around in the environment for a long time. And even as they erode, they produce microplastics. Now, that's an issue. It's not in this edition of the textbook. Maybe it should be next time. But little particles of plastics affect us in various ways. We're finding out they do. that affect our immune systems, reproductive systems. All right. It's kind of humorous, though, but it is true that every little bit helps, every little bit hurts. There was a push. Do you remember this? Are they still doing this? Ban plastic straws because you don't want to have plastic building up in the environment. So there was a push to move to paper straws encased in plastic, and you have to open it. What did that really do? That's a type of doing feel good legislation, things that don't really make any difference. Where a lot of the plastics come from is from shipping. Sometimes whole shipping containers wreck and everything spills overboard. All right, so that's one. Oh, okay. The opening vignette previously, and it's a story I always like to talk about, is what happens at Times Beach, Missouri. Basically, what happened was that the environment was contaminated by dioxin, one of the most toxic chemicals known to man. How did it get all over this county so that it had to be closed down for decades? Well, what happened was a company was trying to get rid of waste oil in drums. And for waste disposal, very often companies take bids on disposal companies to get rid of the waste, where perhaps one disposable company could say, well, I'll get rid of that waste oil for $1 million. But if another guy says, well, I'll take in my pickup truck and I'll get rid of it for $200. Well, which one are they going to choose? That's an exaggeration. But there was a man that was hired to dispose of this factory's waste oil. What he did was he put it in the back of his truck and he sprayed the waste oil on all the dirt roads. The reasoning there is that can be done to keep the dust down and to keep the flies down. But he didn't know that waste oil is contaminated with dioxin, one of the most toxic things that there is. So a little while later, it got quiet because there were no more birds singing in the trees. They all fell out dead. And cattle and sheep were walking around. They looked like they were drunk, and they fell over dead. And children were getting all kinds of cancers and leukemias in the area. So an investigation found out it was contaminated with dioxin, and so the government had to buy everybody's homes. And then there, you can see for a while, you would really have no business going there, but if you did, just stay in your car, keep your windows up, stay on the pavement, drive slowly so as not to kick anything up. Today it's starting to make a comeback, and you can go there. It's designated to be a state park, but I don't know. I'm not sure I would still not want to go there. Certainly wouldn't want to dig there. So chemical pollutants. The dioxins, and they build up in our environments. They bioaccumulate in our tissues, and they also biomagnify in the food chains. So those are all terms you have to look at later. All right, and then closer to my home, the Lake Erie, algal blooms there. There, the algae require a lot of oxygen when they die and decay, and it deoxygenates the water. So also they secrete toxins as well, and so it contaminated the drinking water. Okay, in this chapter we do look at a lot of biology, ecology. For all of the scientific disciplines that end in logy, logy means the study of the house. For example, you might be taking biology. Well, bio means life. Logy means the study, so that's the study of life. Or geology, that's geology, the study of the earth. Or maybe you're taking psychology, which you study psychos. Well, what about ecology? Well, eco means the house or the environment. So ecology is that field that studies how living things interact with each other and the physical environment. Another important term is biosphere. All right, and that's where all living things exist. It's a thin veneer that overlaps with the lower atmosphere or troposphere. That was a chapter 4 term, but we have it again. The hydrosphere, meaning all the water in the world, and the geosphere or lithosphere, the solid rock portion of the Earth. Well, living things are in all parts of that. All right, so that interface between these environmental spheres, that's the biosphere where all living things are. Sometimes environmentalists talk about various issues and even global warming, and a catchphrase is you're destroying the planet, right? Or you're harming the planet with your pollution. But the planet's going to be here no matter what. The planet's always going to be here. The issue is, are we poisoning the biosphere? Even if we let off all the nuclear bombs and destroyed all life, the planet would still be here. It would wipe out the biosphere. So a lot of times when the phrase is given, hurting the planet, really what they mean is the biosphere. That's what I prefer. Okay. Well, it can be said that our biosphere is divided into a number of ecosystems. Like you may have a forest ecosystem or a grassland ecosystem. An ecosystem, they're self-sustaining units, exist on their own, and all the plants and animals and abiotic features existing together. The thing about the term ecosystems, and geographers prefer not to use it, is because ecosystems vary in size or scale. Maybe somebody can give me an example of an ecosystem. Well, you might say, well, the forest ecosystem. Here you have an ecosystem of just as ponds. There's the inputs and the outputs and all the living things and the physical matter that they interact with. For that matter, you could have a whole ecosystem underneath one log. You can have a whole ecosystem in the back of a cave. You have inputs, the bats coming in and pooping, and the organisms in there. It's a whole ecosystem in there, detached from everything else. Or you could also have an ecosystem in a drop of water under a slide, under a microscope. Or you could talk about the global ecosystem, the entire world. So since ecosystems vary by scale, geographers prefer biomes as opposed to ecosystems. All right, so the ecosystems are all the interactions of plants and animals. Also, another term is niche or niche. It's your niche. It's your cubbyhole. All right, it's pronounced niche. Is the preferred way to say it. If you're sophisticated, you'll say niche, right? Otherwise, you say that there's a niche. All right, so it's a niche. What is a niche? Well, that's like a role. All the plants and animals, they're like actors in a movie or a play. They all have something that they're supposed to do. And if you start messing with some of these roles, it can cause problems in the ecosystems. For example, what happens if in a forest ecosystem you get rid of the top level predator? Then you might have too many herbivores denuding the vegetation. Or what if you introduce an invasive species that's not supposed to be there, and then takes on a role of consuming everything? All right, so that's what niche is. Everything has its own little niche. So for example, here, everybody gets along, right? Because the flamingo, they eat what's down there, and the oyster catchers, it's a minor league baseball team, catches what's here at the surface. All right, so geographers prefer to talk about biomes. So we have, for example, the tundra biome or the steppe biome. Okay, another concept in ecology is pretty simple, and that's food chains. All right, so how does it work? Really, you could start anywhere, but usually you start in with the plants. What eats the plants? Well, the rabbit eats the plants. And then what eats the rabbit? Well, the coyote then eats the rabbit. But then what eats the coyote? Maybe a bigger predator. But even then, what eats the predator at the end? After it dies, however it dies, then it gets consumed by fungus, bacteria, all the decomposers, worms, and so forth. All those are part of the dark food chain. All right, so that eats that. So there's really no start or end to it. Right. With each nutritional transfer, then energy is transferred. All right, let me see. Somebody in the first row, these are all terms in your smart book and probably on the quiz. When they say producers, what do they mean? How about somebody in the first row? Yeah, that's the green plants. How about autotrophs? Now, auto means self, troph means food, so self-feeders. So that would be plants too. You can use the same answer there. That means the plants. All right, which one is the primary consumer? That would be the rabbit. Or the herbivore is the answer for that. The secondary consumer, that's the carnivore. Most ecologists, all right, the herbivore is the rabbit, plant eater, and then the coyote's a carnivore. A lot of animals aren't strictly one or the other. Many animals are omnivores. Ecologists often use the term food webs instead of food chains because it's often not so linear. Well, do humans have an impact on food chains? Indeed, if we disrupt habitat, that's probably the main way. But as I mentioned before, what if you get rid of the top level predator in an ecosystem? For example, wolves in Yellowstone, or better yet, the lynx in Canada. Lynx is a kind of cat, right? Kind of wild cat. They were attacking some farm animals, and also, but they would eat the rabbits. So they got rid of the lynx, got rid of the wildcats, but then there was an overpopulation of the hares, and the hares denuded all the vegetation. So if you got rid of the top level carnivore. And certainly inputting toxins in the environment, that builds up in the food chain through biomagnification. Sometimes people that are nutritionists or others often say it's better to eat lower on the food chain. How about somebody in row 2? Have you ever heard that? Try to eat lower on the food chain. What does that mean? Is that a suggestion? Is that a health advice? Eat lower on the food chain.
Eating producers of
So, right, plant stuff would be lower on the food chain, whereas meat is higher up the food chain. And for a long time, it was said that eating a lot of meat is bad for you, right? You're supposed to eat a lot of grains and vegetables. So plants are on the lower part of the food chain. All right, there's a dark side to the food chain. I was showing that clip before class. It's on the announcements. Watch it in the time period after we break up here. Okay, something else, another topic about ecosystems. There's something called the IPAT equation. But it's actually a lot easier than it looks. I equals P times A times T. What does it mean? That means human impact on the environment is a function of population, meaning you have a bigger population, you have more pollution. A is affluence, meaning how rich you are. All right. And then T is, which often goes along with that affluence, that's a technological factor. Is it low or high? Low technological societies have less of an impact. High technological societies have more of an impact. Sometimes I pose this question to students, and I have to explain what the question is. Does affluence cause effluence? Well, first off, what's effluence? Effluence means sewage. That's effluent. All right. There's an effluence in electronics too, but we mean sewage. So does wealth cause pollution? Meaning that the richer you are, the more pollution you make. Is that the way it usually goes? Right, because the more affluent you are, you have more money, right? It's like you buy a new iPhone every year, right? And what happens to the old one? It gets recycled supposedly, or thrown out. It becomes part of the vast e-waste. That's one of the terms in the book. E-waste, all this, used computers, the wiring, the metals, and all that. A lot of that's bad for the environment if not properly recycled. So the more affluent you are, the more impact on the environment there is. So we have rising standard of living. But can't technologies might increase the impact because we're using all this high tech. A lot of it needs these metals, and if not properly disposed of, they poison the environment. Various chemicals that we use to do things. But can technologies also decrease the impact as well? Meaning that we're able to channel and treat our sewage and scrub out the toxins out of smokestacks. All right. That leads to this next point. Oh, I have to click on it first. All right, get out your ebook and refer to figure 13.3. So it may take a few people to answer this. All right, so always make sure you understand the axes before you go. On this axis, you have severity of the impact. And then on this axis, it depends on how wealthy you are. All right, somebody in row 3, have a look at the figure. Somebody elbow and have them look at the figure. All right, if you're in row 3. What's the dark blue line?
The household secretary.
Okay, all right, so that's all right. Is it true that at one time people used to just throw their poop pots right out the window in cities? Indeed they did, or lower technological. Well, with wealth, how would you describe what happened with wealth? With development, how would you describe that blue line? I'm looking for somebody in row 3 first. Maybe somebody in one of the other rows. Just describe the line. Maybe describe the line first, and I could ask you, why does it look like that? Well, somebody just describe the line. Row 3. How about row 4? Describe the line. Yeah, it decreases significantly over time. I'll hit you with a follow-up question. Why is that? Well, we're modern, we figured out ways to dispose of our waste, and that's gone down over time. Okay, and then maybe somebody else in row 4 or anybody in row 4. What does the this orange line, reddish orange line, what's that? There's the key. Okay, so it's urban air pollution. Why does it look like a U or a hill? Urban air pollution. Why does it go up before it goes down? Okay.
Because industrialization started less clean fossil fuels than coal.
Okay. All right. So early on, you're burning whatever, even with households. The households burning wood, burning coal, and locally impacting themselves. But then it gets over the hump and starts going down. Why is that? So that most developed countries don't deal with this. They're over here. It's makes a U. It's curvilinear. Don't you? There you're just belching the smokestacks earlier on in your industrial revolution. You're doing whatever. Then after a while, you learn to start controlling that, and the air quality increases. You don't know how good you have it. There used to be leaded gasoline. That was causing a lot of people a lot of health problems. That lead in the environment. We really got that out. All right. So ones like that. The smog's still a problem. What about the green line? How about somebody in row 5? Step 1, see figure 13.3. Well, if he didn't look up from his phone, he'd say that's the green line, and it slowly and steadily goes up, and it looks like it's keeping going up, and that's greenhouse gas emissions. So that's always going to happen. You might figure out a way to control your sewage and some of these other pollutions, but the carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, that's from producing energy, mostly burning fossil fuels. That's from producing energy. No one goes back. So over time, that seems to go up and up. Now we hope this is leveling. This will level off eventually. Okay, so what are we seeing here? This bottom part of this. So there should be some smart book about this. You're shifting the environmental impact from the local to the global. So you may have local burning and pollution and dumping and so forth, and local sewage dumping. That's local. It's also immediate. It also threatens human health. But the environmental issues are shifting from poisonous directly to things that are more global. Things like, global warming isn't killing people directly. It's an environmental issue, or acid rain, another topic in the chapter. It's more of an ecosystem threat as opposed to a human health threat. Yeah, acid rain is a good example of that. The sulfur dioxide from smokestacks, that's very bad for you. You don't want to breathe that in. When it goes into the upper atmosphere, combines with water, rains out as a weak solution of sulfuric acid, that's not a human health issue, but affects ecosystems over the long term. And also, these things, it used to be pollution would kill you pretty well directly. You're exposed to it, it's going to hurt you right then. But now what we're looking at is delayed effects over a lifetime. This pollution in our bodies, and what we're breathing in and what we're eating, and the microplastics, and so it's delayed. It might kill us later, right? So it's not killing us as soon as you breathe it in, it's killing you later in life. All right, so that's what we mean. So that's a very good figure. There's a lot of things to discuss in that one. All right, let me go ahead. Okay, the next series of slides looks at specific resources. We'll look at water resources and the water resource horror stories that we have, but it looks like I need to end up here, and I'm going to stop the recording.